We are bringing you a brand new podcast, HerSuccess, celebrating female talent in the workplace. We'll discuss careers, industry, gender equality, and more. Keep following.
Welcome back to Her Success podcast. My name is Della, and I'm the marketing engagement specialist here at Engtal, and I'm also the community manager at Growing Women in STEM. Today, I'm here with Dominica and Jessie. And can you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Dominica, and I'm a recruitment consultant here at Engtal. I specialize in all things clean tech, and I'm also a community manager for Growing Women in STEM.
Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm a Growing Women STEM community manager, along with a recruitment consultant over at Engtal. And I specialize in embedded software and electrical engineering within the Northern Californian markets.
Great, thank you. So, first of all, what is Growing Women in STEM?
Yeah, so great question. So what Growing Women in STEM is, it's a community meant to empower and elevate women's voices, particularly within the professional sector of the STEM community. And more so, even our roles as community managers, we're meant to engage with these women within our platform as we serve as one of the voices for doing so.
Perfect. So, both you and Jessie are the community manager. Can you tell us more about your role being a community manager here?
Yeah, of course. So as community managers, like it's not just Dom and I, but we do have like other community managers, and all of us are in like different niche markets. So we all kind of give different points of view. Like obviously, I'm Northern California within more the embedded space, and I come from a different background. Dominica has her own background, her own niche. So we try to get like a group of women all across like our different teams to give like their different points of view, their different backgrounds, just a little bit to add and kind of give women a voice and or help. A lot of people trying to get into STEM, stay within STEM, just like our different points of views, help on, resumes, how to get into STEM, how to stay within STEM, job opportunities, just being basically a lifeline for women in like these STEM industries.
That's amazing. And how did you get into this role?
Well, originally, like we first got into it, shout out to like our marketing team. Like they've definitely been, spearheading this, really like helping out with everything. We're just kind of trying to give our own expertise, but you guys over at marketing are definitely like, kind of like the brunt of the work, doing everything, finding everything. So you guys have been doing an amazing job. But basically, what we kind of do and how we got into it was, you guys approached us working at Engtal, how we have our different markets. But like personally for me in my past job, I was working as, in manufacturing, and I had to go to like these manufacturing plants, and I absolutely despised it. A lot of the men were calling me like names like, "Oh, hey there, like baby girl, like what are you doing?"
Oh my God.
Or "Hey, like doll face." And I was like, "Please don't call me that." And it was very uncomfortable. Obviously, a lot of men work there. I had to travel. And so I would just smile and wave because I was like, I need to make sales because I need to make money. So this is terrible. And I realized like there wasn't really a lot of women. There were no women in my um in my team. So it was just kind of hard like who to reach out to at times. And so like when you guys came up and brought this idea of like basically being a lifeline for other women, like people to reach out to, like I'm having this problem, or more ways to get more women involved so we have more people, more accessibility, was just like a great idea. And for me, like my background, I thought it was like an amazing opportunity.
I'm so sorry
Yeah.
to hear that happened to you, but I'm really glad that you became part of this community group that really empowers women. So yeah, that was a great background story. And do you have anything to add, Dominica?
Yeah, I feel like seconding Jesse's point with just having the opportunity to be, in this group in itself is great, and really parallels well with my own interest from years back when I was first a manager for, I'm sorry, when I was first like a counselor, a teaching assistant for students in STEM camps. There were also not a lot of female, particularly a lot of female students in these courses. However, um, you know, serving as a teaching assistant, as one of the adults in the room, they like a lot of the students did look to me as their own mentor. So I thought it would also be great, to be a part of an organization, a group that, back when I needed a group like this, there was no such thing. So I guess this is my way to pay homage to that community and my original interest of wanting to go more in that STEM field as well, and just kind of giving back.
Oh, that's amazing. And the Growing Women in STEM group has been launched since August 2022. So both of you are almost a community manager for a year. What do you like the most being the community manager here at Growing Women in STEM?
You got to
Away.
answer that one first because there's a lot of good things. I'm not gonna lie. Like, wow, what's the best thing? I feel
Yeah.
like one of the best things is kind of just like working with other like powerful like women. It's just like, wow, like
Yeah.
you just get like different points of view. Honestly, like I've learned a lot from Della, Dom, like I've learned, like different things to do and kind of just like it gives you a really good motivation to be like, wow, we're some badass women, to be honest. Like,
Mhm.
this is amazing. And all of us coming together and like for one like huge goal and trying to help other women is just like motivation itself. Like I'll be sitting there working and sometimes it's like, wow, one of my first placements was like a female and she called me and when I was able to like deliver the like how much she was going to be getting paid, like she started crying on the phone because she was so happy. And in turn, I started crying on the phone just because I was so happy for her. And she was like, this is really life-changing for me. And I was like, I know. And as I'm like crying, and she's like, why are you crying? I was like, because I'm so happy for you. So it's just like making a difference in someone's life and even realizing like day in, day out, you might not, like you don't see those differences, but for someone else, it could be a huge impact.
Yeah, great point, Jesse. And even more so, I feel like just touching on the point of the diversification of different voices, I'm having conversations with different female engineers at different stages of their careers that, I am not in that career. I am totally, like learning off of, what they're doing as well. And, the fact to be exposed to all these women on a day-to-day basis is also so great. I could be having a conversation with a female engineer that is 2 years into a role, really wants to make a change versus, another woman engineer or another woman software developer who is maybe 10, 15 years of into their careers across the entire nation. It's just a lot of, learning a lot about these different women as well. And just having that exposure to them is great.
That's really inspiring, both of you. So, Growing Women in STEM is all about empowering women and empowering people within STEM. And I think that your latest campaign is What's Stopping You. Can someone please brief me in about their campaign?
I will say that the What's Stopping You campaign, so its original intent purpose was to launch the campaign in terms of pushing and elevating women in breaking the glass ceiling. And what we mean by the glass ceiling is whatever may be stopping them from maybe undergoing a lifestyle change, going to this career of STEM, maybe, not necessarily letting the feedback or but like more of the conversation or toxic feedback from, I guess, like their support system or something that may be a barrier from them going into STEM in itself. We wanted to launch this campaign to sort of to serve as that inspirational point for these women to make that change. Yeah, I would say that this campaign really led us to be engaged with our own networks and serving as that inspirational point for them to, actually take some action for moving towards their goals and their own versions of success.
Yeah. Also, just like realizing you're not alone. Like, what's stopping you is like, oh, wow, a lot of people are facing the same issue as me. Like, how have you gone through it? And kind of like just realizing like you have your own community, whether it's, and that's the kind of like the beauty of like the internet is just like realizing like, wow, I might not necessarily have like all these women in my office working directly with me, but I do have a community that I can fall back and have their support, whether or not like I could be, in the middle of California or I can be in like nowhere, Iowa. Like there is a community and women everywhere do struggle with a lot of the similar issues. So just having a lot of people come together and recognize these issues in order to kind of like overcome them and see what we can do to make workplaces a better fit for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant to have this campaign empowering for women and also empowering for change. Um, just a question about what do Growing Women in STEM community do to get the messaging out?
I mean, our main forum is probably LinkedIn. So I'm hoping everyone's following the LinkedIn page. We're usually trying to post like, quality contact content for everyone. So that's probably our main message. But also like Dom and I, we both like call a lot of different candidates, speaking to a lot of women, and on the phone we do try and let them know like we are part of growing women in STEM, and kind of letting them know what it's about, like follow the page, what kind of issues have they been going through, what does the market look like, just trying to get in everyone's point of view, not just, like obviously we're only reaching so many people via LinkedIn, but just every day, like calling people, like being on the phones, talking to, clients on their side. How are they like, how do they influence diversity within the workplace? What are their goals for diversity, and try and like open up those conversations to begin with. So that's kind of our main ways of getting the message out, I would say. I think a good reason to talk about, what's stopping you is to realize that like sometimes there are like roadblocks that we don't have control over. Like you could be the best and the brightest and you're not getting, you know, that next step like professionally. You're not getting, that raise, that promotion. And like, is it because like obviously there's always going to be someone better than us, but is it partly because maybe it's people are stopping us? I actually had a old coworker of mine. She didn't get a promotion, and she asked him why, and he's like, I just think you're stressed out and you can't handle it right now. Like it had absolutely nothing to do with her work ethic, nothing like that. And it was him, and she was like, are you serious? I've been stressed out trying to get this promotion. I want this. Like, this is something I want. Like, that was something that was stopping her. Her own manager was just like, well, you're stressed out. Everyone's stressed out. Like, that's not a real reason not to get that promotion, and kind of like dive in a little deeper and realizing what's stopping us isn't always ourselves. A lot of times it could be like an outside source. And what is that outside source? And is it partly because, there could be some bias there? Or is it, there's someone better and like might deserve that promotion more than us, which is, if someone deserves that promotion more than me and they've been working harder that I haven't seen, you know what? I'll be the first person to stand up and congratulate them, because like obviously they deserve that. But, what is stopping you? And it could be even something non-professional, like what's stopping you from, getting more active this year? I know a lot of times in 2023, when people make their own like goals for the year, like a lot of times like fitness is a big one. So even just like women talking about like going to the gym, or like what's stopping you, even the little things, like what's stopping you from getting that promotion, like the little steps that could get you there, you know, like being more organized, like just getting more tips, and what's stopping you could be a lot more. And opening up that like forum helps a lot of women, and just talking about that and talking about things to get a different perspective. Like, wow, I never thought about that. That's a really good idea. And bouncing ideas off other like amazing women to help get like new perspectives, and even just like new ideas for themselves.
And I think
Yeah.
this campaign really just humanizes what I would say, like what something that should be professional, what we should still be having these conversations even in the professional world. And that's not something to stray from.
That's a really good point. And then I think you mentioned about outside factors that stop women. So my next question would be, what do you think is the biggest challenge or barriers that women face in STEM or generally in the workplace?
I would say like the first thing that pops into my head with this question is the discovery of a reliable mentor who may also be a woman in the workplace, but if not so, maybe like an immediate manager or anything like that, someone that continually showcases resources for maybe a woman just getting into the space, or, on this team or whatever. Like, I think sometimes, people may need a push. And I think finding that the mentor is one of the biggest problems.
I think a mentor is 100% like a necessity for any sort of profession, and finding like females within STEM is hard. And also just realizing how many opportunities there are in STEM. Like after working at Engtal, I didn't even realize how many opportunities there are for, for like women in STEM. Like there's so many opportunities, so many different jobs that I guess I never thought of or realized. And I mean, now there's a lot more opportunities for women going forward and trying, now like they create a whole astronaut suit specifically for women. Like that is a
Yeah.
huge milestone. Everything has been built for men. Cars are built for men. Astronaut suits are built for men. Technically the work weeks are built on like a man's schedule. So starting to like normalize and make things for women and getting more women out there and just starting. I think that's the hardest part is where do I start? Because when I was younger, when I thought of STEM, I just thought of, healthcare, like science, like nursing, doctors, more like science, like biology scientists. And now working, I'm realizing there's a woman I talked to, she's in GIS, and she actually flies drones over vineyards.
Wow.
Wow.
Like, I didn't know that was a job. I didn't know that
Yeah.
was even possible. And now the possibilities are endless. And so
Mhm.
almost, I think the hardest part is starting and
Yeah.
getting into STEM and realizing it's a lot more than, just taking science classes, your chemistry, math. Like, there's so much more that gets into it. And yes, it is hard, but the possibilities are almost endless. You could be flying drones, you could be working for NASA, you can be getting your own spacesuit like designed. I think that is the hardest thing is just starting and seeing the opportunities and the possibilities and realizing there's a lot more than, 20, 40 years ago, women had a lot of different jobs and very small opportunities. And now just realizing like we just gotta start. I think that's one of the big things too.
I really love how you say the possibilities are endless, and I think that's very encouraging. And then you mentioned about massive opportunities for women now. So can you describe the current job market for women in STEM?
I will say that I'm finding that there's still a lot of variability in the market. So, I think a lot of sources right now, no matter where you look to, there's always statements going, oh, the market is challenging. The market is, we don't know what's going to happen. There's still a number of companies hiring. Like, we'll have to check my sources on this, but I do know that there's still a number of companies, like I think it was in the month of February or something, that all in all, in just the nation, there were over 250K jobs just added across different companies. And this is all amidst all the tech layoffs also happening. So it really does depend on where you're looking. As there are so many different opportunities within STEM, whether you're going into mechanical engineering or software development or data engineering, it really does depend, and even more so on taking advantage of opportunities like right out of grad school, right out of your bachelor's. There are different programs that can have other or have links to other roles, more mid-level roles. So it really does, once again, just depend on where you're looking and where you're trying to go with your career.
Yeah. I mean, just for like the record, her like area is all throughout the US. So she has a huge area. Like she
There,
talks to people
Wow.
all over the place, East Coast, West Coast, Mountain Time, Central Time, you're all over it. I'm more in like that Northern California, so I can only really talk about Northern California. But as Dom said, like we're in kind of the weird stage,
Mhm.
huge tech layoffs, like the like titans all doing layoffs where everyone's like, what do I do now? Like you're not safe at these huge tech companies. Where are you? Where previously everyone was like, I don't want to go for a startup just because it's unknown. But any job you get really has made people realize that it's unknown. And that's kind of the hard part right now. I do know a lot of like startups really are valuing like diversity though right now. And that's why they're starting their own company. They're like, we don't want some sort of like corporate area. We want to focus on creating a really good team, diversity, communication, having like pillars. So I think right now a lot of startups are trying to incorporate more diversity, more women, trying to get like more like different points of view and different backgrounds, where other larger companies might just really look at a resume and hey, they went to this amazing school, this many years, they look perfect, great.
Mhm.
So it's kind of the market right now is kind of in a weird turmoil. But I mean, there's still a lot of opportunity. I was talking to my sister yesterday, and I didn't even realize this. Apparently, Starbucks offers, opportunities to go to ASU and get like, tuition reimbursement back.
Mm.
So even just like going and realizing like there's opportunities, getting a part-time job at Starbucks can still help you get into a STEM program at a university level. So now's the time. If I could go back and tell myself, I would definitely try to get into some sort of coding. A lot of it's work from home, a lot of different opportunities, really good. A lot of them have really good opportunities, work from home, flexibility, really good benefits.
Yeah.
I would strongly recommend anyone to learn some sort of coding, even if it's just like some sort of side contract job where you're able to make money on the side. I definitely recommend it.
Seconded.
I think both of you also mentioned about tech layoff, and in a recent news, it has mentioned that there is a growing number of women leaving or getting laid off by tech companies, or even like a number of women leaving their careers in STEM more than men. And I was just wondering, why do you think this is the case?
A lot of like layoffs, unfortunately, if women have recently and they don't have as much experience, a lot of times it's just the people that are let go the most. Um, I guess I haven't heard that like strictly it's only women getting laid off or a larger amount. I think just there's been so many layoffs that it's almost been maybe equal. I guess I haven't read anything just on that yet. But I do know a lot of women are thinking about leaving like STEM just because either like getting families and it can be hard, trying to like raise a family and wanting to like maybe stay home or like, be with their children for like the first couple of years and then obviously wanting to get back in. Some companies really aren't the best at like, getting people right after like taking work time off. Like, well, they took time off. We don't really want to work with them, which I don't think is a good opportunity because a lot of time those women are still like online retaking like classes or like re-upping their skills and really doing a lot of like personal development, which I don't think is taken enough right now. Another big thing is why women are leaving is also like lack of diversity. If women are not being, you know, presented opportunities to be like part of giving like their ideas, being a part of, the company, why stay there?
Mm.
This generation's a lot on mental health. If your mental health
Mhm.
is like suffering, then you've heard of quiet quitting, you've heard of, like find somewhere where you have your passion. And a lot of these women are like, I don't want to be taken for granted anymore. And I'm gonna go somewhere that actually appreciates me, hears my
Good
voice
point.
and values,
Mhm.
myself and other women, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I feel like I've definitely, you know, can agree to that point, Jesse, with um just a lot of I would say even females within the STEM industry, like lifestyle changes are also just, on the table as well. If they're once again just um, echoing what you're saying, if they're not being respected in, their own industry, why not change completely or change roles completely and just be, put themselves in a position where they are able to, or revert back to another lifestyle that they previously had prior to maybe joining STEM for that role in particular.
I think this also refers back to the importance of what's stopping you, because we're not only
Mhm.
empowering for women, but also empowering for a change, for a better STEM
Mhm.
environment for women to kind of like company to retain female talent. So I think it's really important to address this issue today. So I think you mentioned about telling your old self, Jesse, to learn coding. Um, so my next question would be, what tips would you give for those like women trying to enter the STEM industry or women trying to level up their career? Any sort of like tips or advice?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I still have a good amount of friends that, are in school sometimes, like younger cousins that are in school going into, college age or, friends that are in grad school right now. So the biggest thing I tell them is to obviously have like a well-rounded resume. And that resume usually, because sometimes when you're making one of the first resumes, you stick a lot to, obviously what you've done within school, but just make sure you have like the skills you have is like one of the most important parts because if a recruiter sees your resume and they don't see like the necessary skills and sometimes people go, "Oh, well, it's very similar." They assume. No, never assume anything just because, sometimes unfortunately I'm not perfect. I'm not, you know, completely knowing everything. I'm still learning every single day. So there's times I might miss things. So always add everything to your resume. Another big thing is, taking small coding classes. LinkedIn does offer like coding and, small classes. It might not be obviously the most in depth, but you can get like different classes like Unity. That's a good class. A lot of people can get like, Google Cloud, those kinds of, like certifications just to add. So even if you hadn't like maybe in college gone through some of those classes and done things, you can still get certifications outside. And a lot of those certifications, they don't take very long, maybe, like 3 months to 6 months, something like that, where it's not extremely time consuming, like a 4-year degree necessarily, but it still offers you a lot of flexibility in that you do have, something to show like I know this, like I have this certification that shows I have in-depth experience. Another really good thing I would recommend people is just try and get any sort of internship. I know internships can be very weary, no one wants an unpaid internship, and I would never recommend an unpaid internship. I don't think I could have survived, college if I did an unpaid internship, so I would never recommend that to anyone else. But just going to an internship to show like you have experience working on this or on something, um, internships are a really great way for you to kind of also like put into practice, like, is this something I want to do? Because unfortunately, some people do go out of college, find a job, and their first job, they're like, I actually don't like this. And school is so different from personal and professional that maybe get an internship to see if like this is something right for me. And a lot of times it opens doors, possibilities, network possibilities to even other opportunities still within computer science, but maybe not necessarily like embedded, maybe something a little bit more on like the algorithms or machine learning side of things that you can learn more opportunities and become more of a well-rounded coder.
I will say that even to this tactical, I guess, approach with resumes as well, quantifying any sort of, your achievement, your accomplishment as well would be great, or is great, because also that's another thing that a recruiter may be looking for. It's one thing to just give an overview of your general responsibilities for your current role, but that doesn't really tell any, the recruiter just from having a glance over your resume, what you were actually doing and whether you were hands-on, and you very much could be. It's just not necessarily explicitly stated in the resume. So that's my biggest take on there. As well as just personally involving yourself with, this is for one's like own personal development as well, like staying in support systems or groups, organizations, whether that's women engineering or engineers in clean tech or, engineers in Chicago or something like that. Being ever present in these kinds of groups can foster these conversations to happen, whether that is, in regard to, making a move or something like that, or just exploring what else is out there. It's just important to maintain that exposure just for your own personal self. So that way you don't really put yourself in these golden handcuffs when years down the line, you also have another realization that you don't want to stay with that sort of career that you at first wanted to from a few years back. I mean, we're ever so changing, continue to, adapt to that with staying part of these organizations and being involved.
I love
Thank
that,
you so
Dom.
much.
The golden handcuffs. I like that
Mhm.
analogy.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing insight and also advices for young women entering STEM. So, referring back to our podcast, so our podcast name is HerSuccess, and I want to know more about your story. What is success to you? What the future success or future goal looks like for you?
Yeah, HerSuccess was actually something that was my idea, and it wasn't necessarily for like the podcast itself. Like all the women, we were all talking like about growing women STEM and kind of like what we want to like plan like this year. And we were talking about like what's stopping you, and then also on the flip side, adding, like positivity things, like what is the good things in life that's happening? Because obviously, there's a lot of hardships that everyone has, but also recognizing we want to make sure like everyone's being recognized for the small positivities, like I got that promotion, or I just got accepted into college, or I found a really good mentor, just having those small steps and like just being positive and like recognizing those like the positivities and just like recognizing their success along the way to help them. And then someone kept saying success, and I was like, HerSuccess. And I was like, I really like that. It's not too flashy. It's something that everyone can relate to. What is your personal success, professional success? Just sometimes something good happens and you're like, who do I share it with? Like come share it to the like our community page. We would love to hear something like that. We want to like join in on your success. We want to join in on HerSuccess. So that was kind of like the way we came up with that name. And necessarily wasn't about like the podcast at first, but just, the small positives. So I think that was really cool. And then personally for me, success is something not just professionally, but even like personally, it's just not having regrets. I know I said earlier, like if I could go back and like, learn coding, I don't regret not learning coding because it came here like to Engtal and I work and I love, working as a recruitment consultant. I love like working with all like the women here. It's amazing. So I don't have any regrets. And to me, like success is just measuring yourself on, maybe you've made mistakes in the past. How do you, combat those mistakes and learn from it? And then don't have regrets and still end up like, you know, in a good area. Like being successful can be a lot more than just like, I got that promotion. And to me, it's like I don't have those regrets. But my future success, I do have like more goal-oriented, successful things that I'm going for. Obviously, like I would like to own some sort of equity in the future, like a house, condo. To me, like that is showing like my success. Like I have like ownership over things. And then like I do have something that kind of goes with my name. And then obviously I do want to get promotions in the future as much as I like being a junior recruiter. Senior recruiter just has a little bit more of a ring to it, along with a little bit more of a pay, not gonna lie. So that would be a little bit more success that I'm hoping for in the future, not hoping, going towards.
Yes.
I feel like, words, you want to be, stable with your words. I'm not hoping I'm gonna get that promotion.
Yeah.
So those are just some future successes to me is right now is realizing like any sort of past things I've done and how it has helped me in the future and how it can help me, towards those goals. And future is just setting those goals, what I'm looking for in the future and having, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and having those goals, kind of quantitative, as Dom said, like make sure you're having those numbers in there.
Love your definition of success, Jesse. And it's only a matter of time when you accomplish all those things. So
Thank you.
in due time. But I would say that how I measure success is I would measure it with how content I am in regard to that goal. For example, I feel successful like when I, look at how I was when I first joined a role as a recruitment consultant, compared to, months and a year down the line. And I think I feel content just because of, reevaluating my journey, everything that I have learned. So in that aspect, like some may say I guess a small feat because it's not, maybe years and years of experience, but it's just like reevaluating oneself as to, how I would have been. So once again, I think how content I am is just, or even like with future goals as well. I really do apply that for my own version of success.
Thank you so much, both of you. That's really inspiring and encouraging. And I believe that both of you will achieve your future success and become inspiration for younger talent, younger generation. And as we wrap up this episode, one final question is to give an advice for young women in STEM, or maybe just young women who are looking up to both of you. So any tips and advice on how they can achieve their definition of success and also like empowering other women as well?
A big tip that I give to a lot of people, even like something that I've learned myself is like failure is good for you. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit scary, like no one wants to fail. Failing's not fun, but failure is good. It makes you realize, like, is this something you want? Are you going to pick yourself up afterwards and realize, okay, I failed that test. I know what I need to do now. I need to study harder, and this is how I'm going to study. Like, this is the way that studying works for me, and it works for everyone a little bit differently. Or is it like, you know what? I just don't really have that drive. This is not something that I want to go into long term, and kind of finding what is passionate for you. So I think failure is a really good choice of, finding out who you are and like what your goals are. And so if you end up failing, that is okay. And like you should fail because I've done a lot of different, interviews, and a lot of times people like when people have failed. Like, what is the time you failed? That has been a question I've gotten in my own interviews, and I've been like, oh, let me tell you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's just like, wow, okay. Like that's good. That's shown that like you've gone through things, like you have battle scars, that you know what you want, and like there's a reason why you're here. It's because you failed so many times. Yeah. And I kept getting back up because I know this is something I really, really want. And you learn from your mistakes when you fail. So it's okay to fail because that means you're trying something new. And when you're trying something new, you're pushing yourself. So failure is just one of the symptoms, but you know what? It helps you in the long run.
I think similar or quote motto that I go by, and that could be advice as well, is just, what you're going after is outside of your comfort zone. I feel like personally, even trying to mitigate, the daily stresses of, one's life, whether that's personally or professionally, sometimes we do fear, out of going for that next step or whatever else is that's stopping us going with that campaign. Because it's not familiar. It's not, I'm not comfortable because I didn't achieve that yet. Or, it's scary to do the steps to achieve that because it requires this, and this. But it's, continue to persevere because, you are trying to go for that destination of whatever goal you're trying to reach.
Thank you so much, everyone. This has been a very inspiring episode. So I want us to clap for ourselves for this insightful session.
Yay!
So, yay. Thank you again, Dominica and Jessie, and from Growing Women in STEM. So if you enjoyed this episode, please give a like and do connect with Dominica and Jessie on LinkedIn. And please follow our page on Growing Women in STEM on LinkedIn. So thank you so much. See you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to our latest episode on HerSuccess. Loving our podcast? Could you be on our next episode? We are always keen to hear about women with something to say. Get in touch to be a guest on HerSuccess.